the important attribute or a parameter considered there is standard deviation. So that is the important thing. The data items present in the pixel locations are also considered as a part of statistical data analysis. What is the inference I can draw? What conclusion I can draw from it? How many people would be affected by the COVID-19 in the second wave? How many people would be affected by COVID-19 in the third wave are going to be predicted based upon the prior knowledge. Hello and warm welcome to all. It is Dr. Ravi Kumar YB, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. In today's session, you will be taught about the statistical data analysis. That means as to how we can analyze the data items using the methods of statistical approach. Then there are 4 basic steps here. The 4 basic steps include, the first one is defining the problem. That means the defining the problem includes precise and actual definition of the problem is imperative for achieving actual data concerning it. It becomes extremely difficult to collect data without knowing the exact definition and address of the problem. What does this mean? Defining the problem includes taking the imperative statement of that means achieving the accurate data in terms of precise data items. That is very, very important while formulating the problem. After formulating the problem, the next step is to accumulate the data. What is the meaning of accumulating the data? Collecting the data. How the data items are collected? Let me tell you that. After addressing the specific problem, designing multiple ways in order to accumulate data is an important task under statistical data analysis, which includes data can be collected from the actual sources or can be obtained by observation and experimental research studies conducted to get a new data item. In the experimental data study, the important variable is identified according to the defined problem. For example, if I consider any standard deviation or any problem with statistical data item, whether it may be a frequency distribution on grouped data items or an ungrouped set of data items, then what is the standard deviation of that? The important attribute or a parameter considered there is standard deviation. So that is the important thing we need to identify first. Then one or more elements in the study are controlled for getting the data regarding how these elements affect the other variables. When one of the attributes or parameter are considered, which are the other parameters that are going to affect from this parameter or attribute is considered here. In an observational study, that is in case of practical study, this is in case of theoretical study. In observational study, no trial is executed for controlling or impacting the important variable. That is, whether it is a standard deviation or a variance or a covariance, and all those things are considered, there would not be any much more impact on the important variables, where all of the variables are considered in an equivalent manner. But for example, a conducted survey is an example or a common type of observational study which includes how the data are represented. Third one, analyzing the data, which involves, the first step is exploratory data, second one is confirmatory methods. Then we have the probability methods. In this case, we have exploratory methods. It is used for deploying and determining what the data is revealing by using simple arithmetic and easy drawing graphs and descriptions. That means, please note that in order to summarize the data item, we use the graphical representation as well as the description on the graphical representation in case of exploratory methods. But in case of practical methods, practical aspects, we will consider one of the important attribute which is going to affect the other attributes are considered as a important criteria. Whereas in case of theoretical knowledge of statistical data analysis, there is no much impact on the main important attribute. That is the important thing. Moving on to this exploratory methods, we will consider the graphical representation. Along with that, the description of those graphical representation is considered here to describe any kind of data items. Then confirmatory methods, which includes and adopts the concepts and ideas from probability theory for trying to answer the particular problems. There are different types of probability density functions. For example, if you consider any of the image processing tasks, which includes different types of filtering techniques. For example, Gaussian filter. What does the Gaussian filter represent? The graph of that Gaussian filter indicates like this. We have a normal at this point and at this point. If I consider this as my x-axis and y-axis, then where do we have the normal? At this point of juncture, we have the peak value. Then we have the value which is equal to same as this, same as this, same as this. So we are going to describe the data in terms of the graphical representation. That means the description of that is given in case of exploratory analysis. But in case of confirmatory analysis, we will consider the probability density functions. What is the probability density function PDF of this Gaussian filter? We have the different formulas for that, for different types of filtering techniques. So similarly, we have the probability is extremely imperative in decision making, as it gives a procedure for estimating, representing and explaining the possibilities associated with the forthcoming events. What is the type of event which is going to occur? Suppose if I use the Gaussian filter on any of the images, what is the output of that filtering technique as a part of pre-processing? That is also considered there, where the data items present in the pixel locations are also considered as a part of statistical data analysis. That is, in case of this probability density function, what is the kind of probability density functions used to obtain the result out of that? That is very, very important. Fourth one, reporting the outcomes. That means the final desired output which is obtained by applying the filtering technique. That is, whether it is a Gaussian filter or a normal filter, by applying that, what is the output we are getting? That is, by inferences. What is the inference I can draw? What conclusion I can draw from it is to estimate or test that claims to be the characteristics of the population can be derived from a sample. Let me take one of the example in the next subsequent slides, where you will be explained about the population of a city, and it can be represented in the form of a graph. Since only a small portion of the data has been investigated in that example, therefore the reported result can be depicted some uncertainties by implementing the probability statements and intervals of values. That is the meaning of that. With the help of statistical data analysis, experts could forecast and anticipate future aspects from data. That means we have a Bayesian classification algorithm. We will consider the prior probability. Then we will consider the present information. What is the present information of that? Then we will predict the future probability. That is the meaning of posterior probability. Posterior probability is predicted based upon the prior probability of that. That is the meaning of this. By understanding the information available and utilizing it effectively may lead to adequate decision making, and suitable decision making can be taken place by using the prior probability of the information, which is similar to the one which we have come across in the earlier kinds of data items. Then conclusion of this is the statistical data analysis furnishes sense to the meaningless numbers and thereby giving life to the lifeless data. Therefore, it is imperative for a researcher to have adequate knowledge about the statistics and statistical methods to perform the research study. There is a separate branch of statistics wherein the statistical data analysis is carried out, and this statistical data has helped in many of the applications. For example, if I consider the COVID-19 predictions in the second wave, what would be the life of the people? How many people would be affected by the COVID-19 in the second wave? How many people would be affected by COVID-19 in the third wave? Are going to be predicted based upon the prior knowledge. For that, if you consider and if you have read in a newspaper that the IISc scientists have found the probability density functions by considering few parameters, keeping one of the variable as a constant, other parameters as a variable type of parameter, they have been able to predict the number of people who are going to affect in wave second, that is, which they predicted was almost equal to the one which we have faced in the COVID-19 second wave. That is one of the example I can consider here. That is, the probability density functions will help us to predict the posterior probability of that calculations based upon the prior probability information. That is the thing. And based upon the inference which was drawn from the IISc scientists, they also suggested the government of Karnataka to block the borders of Karnataka so that the people will be not affected by the COVID-19 cases more in number. So that was the caution given to the government by IISc scientists based upon the statistical data analysis using the probability density functions. So the statistics plays a very, very important role, whether it is a prior probability or a posterior probability. The posterior probability can be predicted based upon the prior probability data values. That is one of the examples I considered here to explain about the importance of statistical data analysis. Then, what is frequency distribution? Let me tell you about what is the meaning of frequency. Frequency means what? Very often occurring data item. For example, if there is a value 10, 20, 10, 20, 10, 10. Here, what is the frequency of occurrence of this data item 10? 4 times the frequency of this data item 10 is occurring. 2 times the data item 20 is occurring. So I can multiply this by 10 and I can multiply this by 20, so that gives me the value of, that is 4 into 10, that is 40, plus 2 into 20, that is 40, which gives rise to the value which is equal to 80. Now let me calculate and add up these values. 10 plus 20, 30, 30 plus 10, 40, 40 plus 20, 60, 70, 80. We are getting the accurate value here. Then how did I do that? Based upon the frequency of occurrence. This is called as the frequency. The same frequency distribution, how it is distributed in the statistical data, is a topic of our interest now. Now, a frequency distribution is a representation either in the graphical format or in the tabulated format, whether it may be in the form of a tabular form or it may be in the form of a graphical representation. Given in the form of a graphical representation, we will consider the data items into it, or given the information in the form of a tabular form, we will draw the inference in the form of a graphical representation. That is vice versa. That is possible. That displays the number of observations within a given interval. Here, interval I am using here. Given interval indicates that the grouped set of data items. Do I have any grouped set of data items here? Not at all. I do not have any grouped set of data items. It is an ungrouped set of data items. In case of interval I am using here. So what is the meaning of grouped set of data items? I have a range of 10 to 20, then 30 to 40, then 50 to 60. So this is a grouped set of data item. So these are the grouped set of data item. Within this group, what is the frequency of occurrence of data items? That is 10, 20, 10, 10, 12, 12, 15. So these are the data items occurring very frequently. So we will consider the range of data items that is occurring between the interval 10 and 20 in case of grouped set of data items. We have a given interval in this. The interval size depends on the data being analyzed and the goals of the analyst. What is the goal of an analyst? Based upon the goal of an analyst, he will consider the interval size, that is the size of an interval. Suppose if I consider the size of an interval by forecasting the COVID-19 cases which may occur in the third wave can also be predicted based upon the probability density functions. That means keeping one of the criteria as constant and remaining all other criteria as a variable parameters, we can predict the number of cases which may occur in the COVID-19 third wave. That is also possible. So these analysts will consider the range of interval, that means the range of data, that means the time from second wave to the third wave is considered here. How many cases are registering every day, that is also considered. So based upon this information, the random probability distribution function will help us to determine the prediction of COVID-19 cases in third wave. So that is possible. The intervals must be mutually exclusive and exhaustive. Mutually exclusive, I am using the word exclusive as well as mutually. That means either this or that. And exhaustive. The frequency distributions are typically used within a statistical context. Generally, the frequency distribution can be associated with the charting of the normal distribution. That is the Gaussian distribution. Then, understanding the frequency distribution. As you have already taught about the frequency distribution, let me go through the theoretical knowledge of it now. A frequency distribution provides a visual representation for the distribution of observations within a particular test. That means that the data items which can be visualized or seen through is considered here. Then analysts often use frequency distribution to visualize or illustrate the data collected in sample. The number of people who have been affected by cancerous tissues are also considered as an important parameter in the form of statistical data analysis. That is also one of the important example I can consider here. Another example I can consider here is the height of children can be split into several different categories or ranges. That is the class 5 to 7. What is the height of a student? How many students are in the range of this height to that height? From class 11 to class 10, class 7 to class 10, what is the height of a student and how many students are in the range of that? That is considered as a grouped set of data items that whose frequency distribution is considered there. In measuring the height of 50 children, and some are tall and some are short, but there is a high probability of higher frequency or concentration in the middle range. That means the average of that is considered because we have a short people as well as the taller people. Considering the average of these, we will get the average value, that is the intermediate value of that. The most important factors for gathering data are that the intervals used must not overlap and must contain all of the possible observations. That means each and every data noticed is considered here for representing it in the form of a statistical patterns. Then moving on to the visual representation frequency distribution, let me tell you the word, what is the meaning of histogram here? That is a bar chart. Histogram, let me draw a chart which is of this form. That is, we have the range of values, the graphical representation. Like this. What is there in the first situation? That is, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The histogram, the history of that statistical data, the history of an image in case of image processing. What is the bar graph? Which is that bar graph that is helping me to predict or visualize the data items in the form of a graphical representation. is considered here. That means the visual representation of frequency distribution means the data items which we have observed in the earlier slides are represented in the form of a graph. That is in the form of a histogram or in the form of a bar graph. That is the meaning of that. The entire slide summary is this. Now let me tell you this. A visual displaying using the columns with the y-axis representing the frequency count and the x-axis representing the variable to be measured. That is this. In the height of children, for example, the y-axis is the number of children, that is the number of children and the x-axis is the height of a children. That means in the range of the students studying in 5th to 7th class, what is the range of average height of students in that class? That is considered here. The columns represent the number of children observed while the heights measured in each interval. Let me tell you. In general, not in specific, in general, a histogram chart will typically show a normal distribution. That means a Gaussian distribution. What does this Gaussian distribution indicate? There is a peak at the middle of that and all other on the one side we have a replica on the other side. That is the meaning of that, which means that the majority of occurrences will fall in the middle of the columns. The same thing as I told right now. Then frequency distributions can be a key aspect of charting normal distributions which show observation probabilities divided among standard deviations. The point is coming right now. The frequency distributions can be presented as a frequency table, that is a histogram or a bar chart. Frequency distribution and its table is represented here. We have the height of a children in a school here, interval in terms of height and what is the frequency. At height of 4 feet, we have 2 children. At the height of 4 feet, 5 inches, we have 5 children. 5 feet, we have 6 children. 5 feet, 2 inches, we have 3 children. So this is the given data we have collected from the observation. If that is the case, frequency distribution in another trading, that means in the form of a business, market. How does the frequency distribution is calculated? Frequency distributions are not commonly used in the world of investments. But see here, traders who follow the Richard D. Wyckoff, a pioneering early 20th century trader, use an approach for trading which involves frequency distribution. The person by name called Richard D. Wyckoff, who is a pioneered in 20th century trader, used the approach of frequency distribution. How did he use that frequency distribution approach in the 20th century is a topic now. Investment houses still use the approach which requires considerable practice to teach traders. The frequency chart is referred to as a point and figure chart and was created out of a need for floor traders to take a note of price action and to identify the trends in analysis. Then, mean or average or arithmetic mean is one of the representative values of data. We can find the mean of observations by dividing the sum of all the observations by the total number of observations. That is, the mean is one of the important criteria which they considered. Mean was the criteria they considered in the earlier days of the 20th century for the purpose of trading. Mean of raw data. Here is an example for this. We have the sample x1, x2, x3, so on up to xn, which is divided by n, where n indicates the total number of items, which gives me the mean of this. That is the arithmetic mean of that. I can mathematically represent it as xi, where summation or summate indicates that xi can also be represented as x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 plus so on up to plus xn, which must be divided by n, which gives me the value, the entire thing. This term can be replaced and written in the form of xi, where I varies from I is equal to 1 to n. I can mathematically represent it like this: xi, which must be divided by n to get the value in the form of arithmetic mean. Then, yes, the same thing is explained here. Sigma is a Greek letter showing the summation. Let me take up one of the example. Weights of 6 boys in a group are 63, 57, 39, 41, 45, 45. Find the mean weight. How can we find out the mean weight? That is, I will add these individual observations of these 6 children and I will divide them by total number of students. That means 6. What is the value I am getting? That is 63 plus 57 plus 39 plus 41 plus 45 plus 45 divided by 6. That gives me the mean weight of those 6 students in a class. If you look at it, that turns out to be the value which is equal to 290 divided by total number of students, that is divided by 6, which gives me the average mean weight of 48.3. That is the average mean weight of students in a class. Then, mean of tabulated data. Let me consider one of the important aspects here. That is, x1, x2, x3 are the individual observations which we have found here. The observations, and f1, f2, f3 are the frequency distributions, the frequency of n observations, where x1 is appearing how many times, what is the frequency of that? x2 is appearing how many times, what is the frequency of x2? That is called as f1, f2, f3, f4, so on up to fn. If that is the case, please notice that it is very, very important now. I have already given you the information of the weights which was used there, 4 and 2. That is 4 into 10, 2 into 20. That is, what is this? This is a frequency of occurrence. So, if I multiply the actual data, that is xi, from the frequency, that is 4, that is 10 into 4 plus the same thing, 20 into 10, 20 into 2, we'll get the value which is equal to 80. If I do that operation, same thing here, that is by using the frequency distribution, that is this f into x1 plus f2 into x2 plus f3 into x3, so on up to fn into xn divided by f1 plus f2 plus f3 plus fn. That gives me the value of this mean data item. Another example, a die is thrown which is having 6 faces 20 times and the following scores were recorded. That is 6. The first time we recorded 6, 3, 2, 4, 5, 5, 6, 1, 3, 3, 5, 6, 6, 1, 3, 3, 5, 6, 6, 2. These are the observations we noticed when the die was thrown 20 times. We noticed these numbers on their faces. If that is the case, we will prepare a table, frequency table. How many times 6 is appearing? 6 one time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is appearing 6 times. What is the frequency? 6. 1 is appearing how many times here? 1, 2, only 2 times. 1 is appearing 2 times. 2 is appearing how many times? 1, 2. 2 is appearing 2 times here. 3 is appearing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 is appearing 5 times. 4 is appearing 1 once. 4 into 1. This is the frequency. 5 is appearing 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all. Now, let us calculate the frequency distribution table. With the help of this frequency distribution table, we shall calculate the mean of that. See here, 1 is appearing how many times? 2 times. 2 is appearing 2 times. 3 is appearing 5 times. 4 is appearing 1 time. 5 is appearing 4 times. 6 is appearing 6 times. The same thing which I had written in the previous slide. What is the value I have obtained here? 2, 4, 15, 4, 20, 36. If I add up all these values, what is the value I'll get? Let me show you in the next slide. That is, if I add up all these values, I'll get this term, that is 81 divided by the frequency of occurrence, 20. What is the value? 4.05. What is the meaning of this? The mean of the data, frequency distribution data. That means summation Fi xi divided by Fi, where I is equal to 1 to n. This indicates that, please notice that the formulas like this are very, very important even when you write down the research papers. My dear students, your focus must not be only on B.C.A. Your focus must also be on M.C.A. along with that research aspect. That means, let me give you one more information here. The institutions like IISc is ranked top 1 in the world based upon the research criteria. How did they group them as a top 1 university in the world? Based upon the number of research publications that they have found, that is the quality research papers that they have observed in the research areas published by IISc. So similarly, if our institution needs to be at the top, you people must focus on the research areas as well. So my intention and focus is to make you concentrate on your future directions. That means if you want to become proficient in it, you must have the knowledge of mathematics well. Even the statistics plays a very, very significant role in it. So let me take you into the details of it. Third one, if the mean of the following distribution is 9, find the value of P. For example, we have X here, F as well here. What is this X? This represents X1, X2, X3, X4, X5. We have these terms. What is the frequency? 4 is occurring 5 times, 2 is occurring, that is 6 is occurring 10 times, P plus 7, that means P, what is the value of P? We have to find out the P there, which is a constant term, plus 10, that is 10 times it is occurring, P plus 7. But what is the value of P there? We have to find out, which will be shown in the next slide. Then 10 is occurring 7 times, 15 is occurring 8 times in this table. So if you look at it, we have P plus 7 here, we have the value which is 10 here, P plus 7 which is 10 here. Then if I add up some value, that is 3, if I add up the term, that is 10 into P plus 7, that means 3. 3 plus 7 is what? 10. We will get the value which is equal to 10. So constant P is equal to 3 there. Then we have 10, 7, 70, 15, 8, 120. 15 into 8, we have 120. So this is the frequency table which helps us to find out the mean of the data items. If you look at it, you will clearly understand that the frequency of the data items 5 plus 10 plus 10 plus 7 plus 8, which is equal to 40. If I consider the numerator terms, that is multiplied by frequency into the data items, that gives me the 270 plus this is 10. 10 into P plus 7. Then what is the mean of this? If I employ the formula of that, you will get the value which is equal to 270 plus 10 into P plus 7 divided by 40. We have the value here. Then 270. I will further simplify this equation. That is 10P plus 10 into 7, that is 70, is equal to 9 into 40. That means I am considering multiplying this with this. Then 270 plus 10P plus 70 is equal to 9 into 40. 4 9s are 36, that is 360. We have the term here, 10P plus 340. Let me take this towards this side. That is 360 minus 340 is 20. That is 10P. P is equal to what? 20 divided by 10, which is equal to 2. So we have the constant term which is equal to 2. We have found the value of 2 here. So we have a solution to the grouped data here. How can we find out the solution to the grouped data? That means the mean of the grouped data. We have the observations x1, x2, x3, so on up to xn are taken as the mid values or the class marks of the various class intervals. If the frequency distribution is inclusive, then it should be first converted to exclusive distribution. Please see to the table here. We have a range of data items. 0 to 2, we have 1 item. 2 to 4, we have 2 items. 4 to 6, we have 2 items. 6 to 8, we have 4 items. 8 to 10, we have 6 items. 10 to 12, we have 2 items. And 12 to 14, we have 3 items. That means, what is the range? What is the interval I am considering here? That is, the analysts will set their intervals to find out the frequency distribution and to find out the mean of the frequency distribution. Plants per house. If that is the case, plants per house, we have the same thing is written in the form of a tabular representation. 0 to 2, we have 1. That means class mark, which includes 1. 1 into 1, that is 1. 2 to 4, we have number of houses which are having that 2. 2 into 3, we have 6. So similarly, 2 into 5, we have 10. 4. 4 into 7, we have 28. 6 into 9, we have 54. 2 into 11, we have 22. Then 3 into 13, we have 39. So if I add up these terms, that is Fi, Xi, I'll get some value. I'll divide it by Fi, that is the frequency distribution. What is that frequency distribution? This one. Summation Fi, Xi divided by Fi, summation Fi. That gives me the value, that is summation Fi, which is equal to 20. Then summation Fi, Xi is equal to 160. So 160 by 20 is what? 8 plants. That is the average mean value of that. In that area, in that locality, house is having 8 plants. Because there are so many other houses which are having more number of plants in the range of this. Moving on to that. Yeah. Let me stop here for today's session and continue with the statistical data analysis in my next session. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.